middle school friends, Mindy asked a question about, will middle school teachers be teaching students in class and online simultaneously? And with the AB schedule, the answer is yes. And that's kind of what this next section is about. A lot of the elementary colleagues down here have been doing it. I'm trying to think, what was it, for 4 to 6 weeks, Darcy? And then we went back to remote. And then some of us are still kind of doing something like it because we have support centers here. You want to go to the next slide, Darcy? So that's kind of the background a little bit. In each grade level, it kind of depends on the grade down here. Some grades, every single teacher is providing remote and in-person at the same time. Some grades, there weren't as many people, so we pushed them into one classroom. I think first and third is like that. But there's quite a few people down here that are doing that. So we figured we'd give you guys some ideas and kind of share what we've been doing as you guys jump into this on what, 19th, I believe. So this is a little disclaimer. This is what we've done and tried. We've learned and grown throughout this process and continue to make changes. Middle school is a different beast from elementary and vice versa, so it may need to look completely different. Also keep in mind that each of you have your own style, skill level around technology, and philosophies around education. So this, please hear me when I say this is by no means a prescription, but a case study for you guys to learn from as you jump into the remote in-person pool and begin treading water alongside us. So make this work for you. Go ahead, Darcy. So I met with Marcy yesterday, and she said it'd be good for you guys to hear, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? What did we anticipate? What caught us off guard and what we've learned? So if you have any questions, I'll stop every so often and take those. Next slide, Darcy. So what are we doing and why? So the next slide talks about how when we knew, next slide, Darcy. When we found out in elementary that we were going to have to do this and the district was allowing families to keep the 100% remote, we knew it was going to be a heavy lift, but we knew we needed to do it. And we started thinking, like, how can we make this work? So that's kind of how the whole process started. And then we started to think about how can we make it easy for all the different teachers, because there's a lot of us down here that we're going to have to do it. And how can we make it easy for teachers that aren't quite as tech savvy? How can we make it easy for people who want to do a little bit more? And the above all, as I was designing this, was trying to make it really inclusive, to make the environment the same for the remote kids, or close as possible. For the remote kids and the in-person kids, because as far as my class goes, at any given point, I had about 12 remote kids and I had like 17 in-person kids all at once. Next slide, Darcy. So this is the setup that we ended up using, and most of the classrooms down here have something very similar to it. That monitor on the left is hooked up to the computer on the right, and that computer is always running the Google Meet or the Zoom, so you can always see the kids from all angles of the classroom, and you always see the remote kids. Now there's another computer, and the reason we use two different computers is because if you're trying to present slides and do audio and video and do all this other stuff, one computer couldn't quite do it. So we are using two computers down here. That computer, that black computer that the screen is off, is hooked up to the Promethean board. And just picture that as pretty much like a screen share, if those of you who are using multiple screens for remote teaching. There's also a web camera on a tripod with a super long USB cord. That way you can move that and put that anywhere in your room that you want. And then there's also a document camera. So those are the big things that we're using that we had to get to make this, in my eyes, work and work well for everybody. Next slide, Darcy. So the next couple of slides are what it looks like for the different kids. So you guys are going to have kids in person and you're going to have kids at home. The kids in person, all the instruction was all the instruction was off of the Promethean board. So I just presented the same screen to the kids at home that the kids in person were seeing. And some of the things we might present were Google Slides, the document camera, or the kids that are remote to create like a classroom discussion, or the picture on the right is the web camera that I would just set up and operate the class as normal if I couldn't figure out an easy way to make it remote. Next slide, Dars. So then this is what it looks like for kiddos that are here using the social distancing. 6 foot, I can have so many kids at the carpet and keep at that. I know you middle school teachers don't have kids typically at the carpet, but it was kind of hard for my kids to see the screen from afar. Just like I said, I present everything for both of them at the same time. It's no different. Next slide. Here's a couple videos. Oh man. Hey Dars, can I share my screen real quick instead? I think I can get those videos going. Darcy, can you see my screen? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it.
Yes.
So this is kind of showing you what it looks like for kids.
Ollie, come on over, bud.
The web camera.
So kiddos at home, you see how you guys are always rock stars here? See you guys would wave at us.
Sometimes you're on the Promethean board.
Sometimes you're on the big screen. Wave at them, guys. Say hi.
So that web camera made it to where the kids feel like they're part of the community, and that screen did it as well, where it's facing out. The kids can see each other at all times. This video right here is another video of a lesson where
to help us now.
So these slides are what I'd be presenting to the whole class and the kids at home, and then I'd switch to the camera.
Let me show you. Let me go back to. Let me stop presenting. Now, kiddos at home, you should be able to see me now. So inside our classroom.
So at least for elementary teachers, that web camera really opened up the classroom to where you could use anchor charts, dry erase boards, other resources that all kids had access to.
To help us.
Keep going. I saw something in the chat box asking if we had, if middle school teachers are going to get access to this. PTA helped fund this. We use some of our own classroom budget. Some of the stuff we bought out of our own pocket. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of funding. But here's the stuff that we got. And we're doing this so early so you guys can kind of wrap your brain around it, knowing it's 5 weeks away. Shipping is going to be kind of a pain. Kurt, what did it take us to get some of this stuff in the beginning of the year? Like 2-3 weeks for some of the stuff?
Yeah, some of it was delayed just because there was a high volume being requested right at that time. But most things were here within, 2 to 3 weeks. And I checked yesterday the webcam, this extra large screen. I mean, it says a few days, but we don't have funding yet from FOSS and PTA. So that's something we'll have to, and we can't, I need to check with Angie. Previously, if we order tech stuff and it's over a certain dollar amount, you have to go through a purchase order process, which takes longer. So if we're going to do that, we should do it right away. And we could use school funds, I think, to get those things. It would just, it would take a little while to process it.
Yeah. Okay. So a better web camera, tripod, screen, obviously. I splurged on this out of my own money. It was only 28 bucks. The document camera, for those of us who didn't have a document camera, I know a lot of you guys talking to different middle school teachers, you guys operate a lot of different computers at once. This mouse is really nice to have. It's wireless and you can operate 2 different computers at the same time. You just push a button and it switches over to another computer. And then I can walk around my classroom with a clipboard and operate. I was just sick and tired of sitting at my computer all the time. So I got that to kind of get me up and around.
And the district is supposed to provide us with extra document cameras. I'm just not sure how many.
Sometimes you need an extra hub there's so many cords going into one computer, and some computers nowadays only have a couple USB ports. So you had to get a hub and then a few cords. So keep in mind, we down here used a mixture of funding to make this happen. Our own school budget, PTA, equipment we already had. Jimmy was a big help with all this, and some of our own money. Talk to admin about ordering this. Take it off your guys' plates. They're more than willing to help you out. And ask for help. Like, all the teachers down here received training and help setting it up. For those of us who hooked it up, it's a lot easier than you trying to deal with it and figure it out. There's also a micro center on the south side of town. So I talked to all the teachers down here that have been doing both at the same time and kind of got their words of wisdom and what we've learned down here to kind of share with you. First and foremost, I don't want to candy coat it. Like, this will be hard, but I didn't anticipate it be so hard. Like, it's a whole different beast of instruction. I feel like as educators, we're used to teaching in person, and we're all have done a really good job with that. And then come March, we had to learn how to teach remotely. And then this is a whole nother layer. Like, this is both of them at once. And it's super hard, but I think it can be done right. And it can be done to where the kids are successful both in the classroom and outside, but I don't want to candy coat it. Like, it's hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done as an educator. Here's some of the things that we didn't anticipate. Your colleagues downstairs talked about how it's hard to plan because you don't have any planning time, because down here, at least during their specials, there's kids in the classroom, the audio's on. It's just hard to find a place to actually plan. You're constantly asking yourself if you're meeting the needs of the in-person kids and the remote kids. And I would say this one's really important, since your guys' kids haven't been back been here since March. You almost have to operate like it's the first day of school all over again, and give yourself and the kids time to learn new rituals and routines, and go slow to go fast. You're gonna have to teach the kids how to be remote or how to be in person at the same time as other kids. And it's important to get their feedback. Like, ask them, how's it going? What would you guys change? What can we do differently? I know Austin's talked about, like, he gets a lot of really good advice from his kiddos. Creating new habits. Like, you guys have been doing the remote stuff for 8 months now, something like that. I remember the first day that I was teaching in person and had the other kids, I had the kids come to the carpet, and I was like, all right, kids, grab your dry erase boards and your dry erase markers, used to them having all their materials right next to them at their computer. So I completely had to change. Tiffany, I see your question. What was hard about it? It's just this next part right up here kind of explains it. I feel like as human beings, there's certain things in our lives that are just habits, like tying your shoe. You don't have to think about it. You start the habit loop and it does it itself. Driving your car. There's a lot of things that we do as teachers that a lot of you and most of you are veteran teachers where you've been doing it so long, you really don't have to think. Everything you have to do now, you have to think about it. And your brain is just fried by the end of the day because you're trying to operate the computer at the same time as calling on kids. And it's just a whole different thing. Anticipate tech problems. Once a week, something happens and I got to spend the time to fix it, and I lose instructional time and get frustrated. The stress of wondering if today's the day that you get COVID or somebody else gets COVID. I think the worry is real. We talk about it a lot down here in the elementary with my colleagues, Barb and Joanne and the rest of the people that are in the building right now. And it affects your behavior and thoughts. Like I'm in the classroom right now with some kids, and a girl came up to me and she was just too close. And I said, hey, I can't have you that close. You said you're not feeling too hot. And it completely changes how you feel. And the importance of setting boundaries and guidelines for remote students. And what I mean by that is when we're remote, total remote, 100% all the kids remote, they could just unmute themselves and like shout out and answer questions at certain times if I gave them a certain hand signal. And they were kind of used to that. And they would like call for me as I'm conferring with kids. So I had to set guidelines with the kids. Like if my screen is turned towards the classroom and I'm conferring with the kids out in the classroom, you guys need to wait until I loop back to the computer and ask you guys if you guys need help. There's just really weird things like that you don't think about setting up. If you want to increase engagement, Marcy said one of the biggest questions you guys might have is around engagement. I'd say place that second screen so the kids can see each other. Place it out to where the remote kids can see the in-person kids and vice versa, and create like a true dialogue between the kids. Figure out ways where they can interact. What else? I call on the remote kids disproportionately because I feel like the kids that are in here, they have the gift of being in person and having that extra support. Turn your camera. I said that earlier during independent times. It makes the kids actually have asked me to do that. I've forgotten to do that at times. And they're like, Mr. Wagner, can you turn the screen so we can see the class? I think it makes them feel like they're here. Create a system for providing feedback to both. What I like to do is just make a quick sweep. I go through the in-person kids, come back to the remote kids. And the angle of your camera is super important. Austin felt like if you set it up right, it makes it feel more like a classroom setting for the remote kids.
And Corey, it is a little bit different in this case because their parents didn't choose for them to stay home all by themselves, like at Halloween when, you know, there was only 5 kids at home and the rest of the whole grade level was there. So it's a little bit different, but
yeah.
Really quickly, Corey, I'll just add, it is extremely hard. And I think Melissa said, you know, it is 2 different jobs, and that is very true for all of the people that have done it. But it's possible because the teachers that have been doing it have doing a really good job. So, I mean, I know this is a lot of information, but don't get so overwhelmed because, you know, Corey and Michelle and Mindy and Alexa and all of the people that have been doing it have been rocking it also.
Yeah,
so,
and to that point, Darcy, we've been doing it. We did it for like 5 or 6 weeks, and every day we'd learn something new and we'd tweak. And so the last slide is what I want to say right now, but I'll show you that in a second. To keep my kiddos organized, because there's a lot of weird things that we have to go do that the remote kids aren't really a part of, like snack or mask break or lunchtime, like creating slides to keep on the screen so they can monitor that. Otherwise, they didn't seem to come back on time or the right time or whatever the case may be. And I'd suggest set up your technology knowing that you're going to come on the 19th. Set it up and practice it. We got on as a grade level team and would practice with different colleagues vertically and just practiced it and kind of saw how it was, made tweaks. Teach as if you're remote. Like this was what Renee was saying, and that's kind of how we still operate.
Or did you have the students that were in person on their Chromebooks much still doing online stuff, kind of matching what the students at home were doing?
Sometimes I would. If it was like, so we use Seesaw, which you guys don't use. Seesaw would give me the ability to do like some assignments. So I'd use that sometimes and have all the kids. Specials were definitely on there because they would get on dance or get on whatever special they needed to get on remotely. And it kind of depended on the situation. Sometimes we'd send all the stuff home like a week ahead of time so they had the materials so we could do paper and pencil and worksheets or stuff like that. But it took a lot of extra planning and prep to get that ahead of time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Corey, Tiffany's asking when you finish this to go back to the text slide just so you can, you can see everything.
Yep, we'll do. Everything is so much slower like I have to plan for less, and I've slowly adjusted because it takes you more time to get over the computer and set up the computer and talk to the kids online. And it just goes slower. And it was frustrating at first because I was like, man, if I could have got through this lesson in 2 lessons in the less time that I have now. It's just something that I've had to adapt to and accept. And the most important thing I think for you guys, be patient, give yourself grace as you adjust and adapt and shift to a completely different new style of teaching. Like it's, like I said, you have in-person, you have remote, and now you have them both. And it's a roller coaster. There's really, really good days that I'd like leave work and I'm like, I nailed it today. It was great. And there's other days where it's like, pardon my language, but it's like, holy shit, that was a disaster. How can I regroup? So it's kind of an up and down roller coaster.